Okay guys, so we're just going to take a quick peek at the back 40 greenhouse here, see how that's doing. The heat has been high 90s again this week, but as you can tell with watering every day that this greenhouse it's doing amazing. So guys, this greenhouse, I don't know if I told you, but this greenhouse is 12 by 60. Now we of course have, how many garden beds do I have here? 6 in this one. I purposely left the back empty simply because at the back of this, I'm going to be putting more fabric, just landscape fabric down, but also I'm going to be mulching it as well. So it's not finished, and I don't have the top up. And I'll tell you why I didn't put just the plastic over it is simply because it's been so hot and just so dry that I would be doing myself a disservice. I'd be having to water in here more frequently than I normally do. So one of the things I want to share with you is this is great. So now you've got your greenhouse kit. You've got it all laid out and you've decided to put gardens in it. But I think one of the things that people forget about too is what are the expenses or the additional expenses that you would go through in terms of spending for putting the kit together. So I'm just going to show you a few things that we did. When you initially pull your kit out of the box and you start laying out the pieces to put it together, you'll realize very quickly that one of the things that doesn't come included with it is the wood pieces. So my husband and I, when we moved in here, the previous owner had a wood pile that was sitting in the back 40 here doing nothing except pretty much going bad. So we recycled this wood. We recycled all of these pieces of wood and used it to basically frame the greenhouse to give it more sturdiness on the top, but also on the bottom. And it spans all the way around the greenhouse. The entire greenhouse is braced because here in zone 3 in the prairies, the winds are high, and if you're gonna put up a greenhouse, you have to be able to brace it or it's going to become a gigantic tent once that wind hits. And I know you think, okay, well, it's 60 feet long, it's not going anywhere. Trust me, sometimes the winds get to ridiculous speeds here. So you will want to actually brace if you're just getting a greenhouse tent like this one. Even though it's commercial and it's a little bit more heavy duty, you will want to brace your high tunnel here. Recycled wood works fine. We basically used your basic 2x4s. We didn't use anything special, but we didn't go to the store and buy it. It was here. It was junked wood. We cut off the pieces that were, obviously not usable. And as you can see, it's also on the other side. It's all about recycling. Use what you have. Also with the greenhouse, what we did was, I'm just going to get up close here. We put down cement footings. And we did that as well so that we could brace it against the winds along with the wood. We sunk this baby right into cement. And that's very important. This greenhouse isn't going anywhere because it's got cement, it's sunk into cement all the way down. And we did that obviously to help with the winds as well. And then we didn't waste the leftover concrete. We actually just made sort of a little welcome mat thing that I'm gonna, that's for the door and that kind of stuff. So we didn't want to waste anything, but very important. If you're gonna be building something and you live in this zone, you will need to brace it. That is a must. And the other thing you might want to take into consideration when you're putting together this kit, the reason why we have duct tape around the tops of these is because of the screws. The screws actually stick out. And I put it over every one of them. The screws will stick out. So when you actually put your tarp up, what will happen is the screws will poke through the top of your tarp. So what we did was we actually cut the screws down and then filed them at the bottom to make them smooth and then covered them over with duct tape, because the last thing you want is a tarp that's supposed to last 3 years and you come out after winter and you have holes all through your brand new tarp. So we've done that all the way down on either side. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not. It's kind of hard to see, but all the way down this greenhouse, the sides of this particular greenhouse roll up. So yes, you'll get the pollinators in, but you'll also get the bad bugs in too. So what we've done is at the bottom here, we've actually added screen. And what you're seeing, you're probably seeing the bigger squares on the outside. That's deer fencing that I've also put around the greenhouse right now because I don't have a tarp up. But there's actually screening here. So that at nighttime, if I just want to still have it where the breeze is coming through, but we're not having the bad caterpillars and bugs get in at night or the moths, then, you know, we can do that. And I can leave the sides of it rolled up. And that's something that does not come with the kit. That's something that you'll have to add on separately if you wish to have, you know, your sides rolled up at night. And also, of course, keeps the other you know, animals and stuff out as well. What you're seeing is just some fabric plastic I have laid down. My goal was to actually lay this out, but I'm going to change it over to a different type of fabric that I've laid underneath the garden beds so that, you know, it helps keep the weeds down. So this plastic will be out of here and we'll be putting down landscape fabric and mulch for the floor. And as I mentioned, because this is, we call this the back 40, it really is. You take a look, without my tarp up, I'll just walk you around the side here. This is what I'm looking at when I'm in my greenhouse when I don't actually have the tarp up. Back here, I'm just gonna move down here. Way back in the back there is a compost pile, you know, and this is where I'll be sort of adding leaves and pieces of logs and things like that. I'm going to leave it there. It's out of the way. You know, we're on 5 acres. It's not going to bother anybody, and that will be my compost pile. That's where I'm going to be starting my potting mix. But this is what I'm looking at from this greenhouse when I'm gardening without the tarp up. And I apologize. We're actually putting up a building today, so you hear the skid steer in the background. Otherwise, you don't hear anything back here. So that brings me to my last sort of point that we have to consider. Now that we're not putting up a tarp, we have to put up what I call Bambi fencing around it. So what I've done is I get a lot of deer back here, a lot of deer. So I've had to come along, I don't know if you can see this, but I've had to come along and actually add in some fencing to go up over, just up probably about 4 or 5 feet up the bars so that Bambi doesn't put her face into my raised garden beds here. And that happened, it was my own fault because I didn't actually put it up right away. And when I came in one morning, the tops of my beans were gone. So, you know, it was just a necessity for me to do that. I get a lot of foals with moms coming through here too. It's just kind of cool. I get a lot of yogis through here too, though. I get a lot of bears. The netting is not going to keep the bears out. But sometimes what happens is if it's not easily accessible, then they kind of just mosey on by because they can't grab onto it as easy. But so, yep, you're going to have to decide as well where you're going to put it, how you're going to protect it. How are you going to brace it to keep it down from the wind? And are you going to add maybe a little bit of cement footings, which we did, to help out with keeping it in place? So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Those are some of the additional expenses. You know, it's probably going to be other things that I'm going to be adding. So, of course, the landscape fabric isn't cheap either. So there's always going to be those extra additional costs. I think if I had to go out and purchase the wood, I'm thinking that probably would have added the biggest expense of all, considering when I was building this thing. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Those are some of the little things. I'll probably think of other things to tell you later, but those are some of the things that I would consider if I was putting up one of these, or even if it's not as long as this one, it's definitely something still to consider. Bracing it and making sure that you've got some cement down to keep it where it is. This thing is heavy, but it's not going to be any match for the winds. This is just going to be one gigantic parachute as soon as the winds pick up if we didn't brace it down. So just wanted to show everybody that. The garden is growing awesome back here. I think one of the viewers pointed out, you know, to grow rhubarb in one of my bins. I have that. I just wanted to show you. The rhubarb is here. I've got a bunch of beans growing in here. But the rhubarb is growing amazing right now. It's starting to get really thick. I might not get any stalks out of it this year, but at least next year I can make strawberry and rhubarb jam, which I'm looking forward to. But the reason why I put it in a bin is because rhubarb can get really out of control. So I just wanted to put it somewhere where I could try and keep it under control. This bin, the roots, I just didn't want the roots to travel. So we're going to do our best to keep it in check, because rhubarb can just go crazy sometimes depending on where you plant it. So it's in here. So I just wanted to point that out. Really quick video today. Just wanted to let you know some of the additional expenses maybe to consider when you're putting up a tent. This is what this is, a high tunnel, a tent. There are always additional expenses, and even in the greenhouse dome that I have, there was additional expenses that we had to put into it in order to make it the way that it was. So nothing is ever straightforward. Thanks for joining me, guys. See you soon.